All right, you guys made it. The last two modules of Unit 7. Today we're doing session 1 of Module 3. All right, let's take a look at what we have on tap for today. We're dealing with powers and patterns. I hope you remember exponents from previous lessons, probably from your order of operations. But we're going to be doing and looking at powers of 10. You will continue to play workplace games. If you do, there's a mistake. If you do have some extra time, and for your practice today, student book, page 279. All right, so let's take a look. We have a problem string, another problem string, but this seems to be, it's all going to deal with patterns, so I think you'll be able to catch on pretty easily. All right, so let's take a look here. What is 32 times 10? Okay, so how do we figure that out? Well, look at 1. What is a math fact that we can see? We can multiply 32 times 1. What is 32 times 1? And then we add the number of zeros in your problem. All right, there is only 1 0 in my problem, so I have to add 1 0 to the product of my multiplication problem. All right, so then let's look at do numbers 2 and 3 in your notebooks and tell me what do you get. All right, so hopefully you're all done with those. I have 32 times 100. So again, I'm multiplying 32 times 1, and I see that there are 2 zeros, so I have to add 2 zeros in my answer. Okay, and again, 32 times 1,000, I go 32, and I have to add 3 zeros in my answer, and this is what I get. Now, before we go on, I want you to understand what an exponent is. Exponents are those little numbers that are above my numbers here on the bottom. Okay, it's a number or symbol that indicates the power to which the base number here 4, here 3 is raised. For example, in the expression, the exponent in this expression here, the exponent is 2. So I'm going to multiply. We're raising 3 to the second power, and we're multiplying 3 times 3. Here, 4 cubed, which is 4 times 4 times 4. Now, go back to our base. Remember when we're doing length, or we're figuring out area, right? How many numbers are we multiplying together? We're multiplying 2, right? We're multiplying length times width, correct? And we are putting that down in as square units, right? Same thing. Square, we're only multiplying 2 numbers together. And in this case, we are multiplying the same number together. And when we figure out cubes or cubic volume in cubic units, we are multiplying 3 numbers together. So when we look at the 3, we're going to multiply 3 numbers together, right? And it's the same number 3 times. So 4 times 4 times 4. It's not 12, right? It's not 4 times 3, because that would be 4 plus 4 plus 4. This is 4 times 4 times 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 4 is 64. All right. So now let's take a look. Using exponents, we're going to figure out the same kind of problems. When I multiply by a base 10 number, or a number like a 1 with zeros at the end, I add zeros to the right-hand side, or I'm moving my decimal point over 1 spot, or the number of zeros that I see. If I divide by a base 10, I'm moving my decimal to the left 1 spot. So when we take a look at this, I have 64,000. So I'll use my number again, and my decimal point is right here. It says I have to move my decimal point over however many powers of 10 that I see. I have 2 powers of 10, so I have to move my decimal point over 2 spots, and that's what I got. Okay. Again, if I go 64,000 divided by 10 to the third power, I'll take my 64, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to move my decimal point over 3 spots to the left. 1, 2, 3, put my decimal point in, and I have 64, right? So now remember, as I multiply my numbers, I move my decimal point to the right. So I have 4.5, or I'll put 45. This is where my decimal point is. And it says I have to move my decimal point over one spot to the right because it's 10. I only see 1 0. So I have 45.0. But if I look at and I take it to the power of 2, I have to move that decimal point over 2 spots. And to fill that spot, I need to add a 0. Okay? Same thing if I'm going a multiple or 10 to the third power, I have to move that decimal point over 3 spots. So there's 1, and then add zeros to fill in the extra spots, 2, 3. Okay? If we're dividing by decimal, we're going to do the same thing, except we're moving it to the left, right. So I have to erase that. I'm going to put, that's 1 spot, because it's 10 to the first power, or just 10, period. Same thing were to happen if I go 10 to the second power. I'm going to move it over how many spots? 2 spots. So here's 1, and then I have to still add zeros to fill some extra spots, right? And 10 to the third means I'd have to move it over how many spots? 3 spots. Working with exponents and division and base 10, very simple. Very simple, very easy. It's just moving a decimal point over to the left or right. So when we deal with powers of 10, I want you to take a look at what's similar here. If this is 10 to the fifth, how am I going to know how many spots to move it over, right? I know it's 5, but I also know that there's 5 zeros in my number, right? It's not a 10 with 5 zeros. It's a 10, and you have to include that because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we see 10 to the 6th, we see a million. 10 to the 7th is 10 million. 10 to the 8th is 100 million. And 10 to the 9th is 1 billion. Why might it be easier for us to write numbers using exponents than it would be to write out the full number like this? It saves space. It does. It saves space and saves time, right? If you want to find an easy way to write 1 billion, go ahead and write 10 to the 9th. Everybody knows what you're talking about, especially in your class right now. 10 to the 9th means 1 billion. It's a 1 with 9 zeros afterwards. Okay? So now you know exponents, powers of 10. Cool. All right, so let's take a look at what you have today. It's not the April number corner again. It is the May number corner. Feel free to use any of those online resources. You do have those workplace games that I like to play, and I like to beat you guys at. But you also have your student book, page 279, to finish for tomorrow. So have a great day. If you have any questions, send it over to the teachers. We'll be more than happy to answer. No questions? Enjoy math.